Okay, your next section is now B3 Operations Management, within which we will have three sub modules for cost accounting and two for performance management. This is the one. We are right here, operations management, cost accounting, and performance management, and there are 5 modules, and we are going to do the first module today, cost accounting part 1. What exactly are we going to cover in this module? We will be doing cost object or objectives, tracing cost to the cost objectives or the cost object, and finally the cost behavior, the behavior of the fixed cost and variable cost in the short run and in the long term. Let us discuss first cost object or cost objective. What is a cost object or cost objective? A cost object or objective could be a product, a department, a process, a facility, or a manager. Means anything at all with the reference to which the cost is accumulated. If we add up all the cost related to producing a product, then this product is our cost object or cost objective. The cost that we incur in producing this product will involve direct material, direct labor, variable overheads, and fixed overheads clearly. Then we talk about if the cost objective is a department, then all the costs specific to this department mean the salary of the employees working in this department, electricity consumption, telephone, plus all those costs that can be directly traced in this department will be called as, and then this department will be called as our cost objective, because we are compiling all the costs related to this department. Same as for a manager. A person even could be a cost objective, like if we have hired a purchasing manager responsible for purchasing procurement function. The salary we pay him plus any vehicle allowance plus accommodation plus all the costs that we can directly trace to this particular manager will be the cost attributable to him, and this is what we have here as a cost objective. So cost objective could be anything, any object with reference to which the cost is accumulated. So whatever common cost objectives could be a product, as I told you, direct material, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead. And then period costs are those costs which are not directly a part of the product. When you say period cost, these are the costs that involve selling and distribution, administrative expenses, the costs that are not related to a part of product. So what we have is direct material, direct labor, variable overhead, and fixed overhead as a part of product, and all the other costs, not a product cost, will invariably be your period cost, like selling and administrative expenses, all variable and fixed, and as well as your administration and journal expenses, all variable and fixed. These are called the period costs. Another classification could be the manufacturing cost. So these are the cost of manufacturing we discussed a little while ago: direct material, direct labor, variables overheads, and fixed overhead, all the costs that become a part of product. Could be cost of goods sold, which is a cost as well, cost of goods manufactured, total manufacturing cost. We'll discuss these things in detail with numbers in your MCQs. And non-manufacturing costs are the costs that are not manufacturing cost. In other words, right? Selling and distribution, variable and fixed, administration and journal, and other incidental costs other than the production cost. So here we have an important point. Cost accounting systems are designed to meet the goal of measuring cost objects or cost objectives. The most frequent objectives would include product costing, we just discussed a little while ago. It is also called the inventoriable cost, and then it then transfers to the cost of goods manufactured and sold. If it is sold, it becomes cost for the period. Income determination, of course, we have revenue, and we must match revenue with the cost for the corresponding period, called the matching principle. So those costs we discussed earlier, that is selling and distribution, administration and journal expenses, together with the CGM and CGS to calculate your income. And then we also use cost accumulation, cost objectives for efficiency measurement. How well are we performing with reference to our standards? How well we thought we will perform, and how did we actually perform, for cost comparison versus what should be versus what is. Thomson Manufacturing incurred the following costs during its recent fiscal year. Compute Thomson's product cost and period cost for the period. Alright, so first, wages for factory employees, it's a product cost. Wages for accounting department, of course, accounting department is not involved in production, it's a period cost. Sales and promotion, of course, period. Raw materials purchased and consumed, since we haven't been given the opening closing, so it has to be made a part of product cost. General and administrative costs, it's a period cost. Manufacturing overhead is a product cost. And interest expense is a period cost. So if you add these three and add these four, you get 11, 750, 250 as your product cost, and 2035, 500 as your period cost. Next we have tracing cost to cost objectives. Direct cost. Direct costs are the costs that can be directly traced in the end product. Like if you see this computer, what I see is the physical body of the computer that contains screen, keyboard, its physical form. When we open it, we'll have motherboard, processor, and many components. So direct material that can be directly traced in the end product. Direct labor, the labor that was engaged in assembling the components, testing it for usability, and direct expenses like installation of Windows or any operating system. So all these costs that can directly be traced to the end product without significant effort, or the cost that can easily be traced, identified with an end product, is called the direct cost in a simple, feasible, economic way. And remember, not only these direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, remember the cost incurred to bring the material to a production facility, the freight in, is a direct cost. Deduct any discounts, if any. And during manufacturing process, some of the units might get wasted. This is called normal spoilage. And that we would have set a certain threshold that out of 100 systems we assemble, 2 may go wrong, or maybe they are not fit for usage. So this is the normal spoilage. This normal spoilage is kept within the production cost. Remember, normal spoilage, direct material, direct labor, transportation in, less any returns, they are all added to the cost of production, and these are all considered as direct costs. Then we have indirect costs. Indirect cost, it is not easily traceable to this end product or to this cost pool or to this cost objective. Like there might be some employees engaged in our production facility who are responsible for cleaning, some are responsible for custodial services, janitorial staff. So that indirect labor is not directly involved in production. Electricity, gas, and water, some indirect material which is not directly used in this end product might be required in production process. So indirect costs are those costs that are not easily identifiable in the end product or in the end cost objective. Such costs are called indirect costs. Remember, whether direct or indirect, all the costs incurred in the factory facility are considered as our manufacturing costs. We add them up in the 4 categories: direct material, direct labor, variable overheads, and fixed overheads. Variable overheads vary with the level of output, electricity, gas, water, and fixed overhead like rent, depreciation, property taxes, insurance, etc. They are fixed. They are sometimes collectively called as the manufacturing overhead. Nonetheless, all of these are called as a part of product cost under the US GAAP and the IFRS. We have another system we'll discuss later on called the variable costing. In variable costing, we consider just these 3 as a part of product cost or inventoriable cost. Now, why do we do that? We'll discuss there. Okay, here is nice grouping you need to learn. We know these are the 3 total cost of production: direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead, sometimes called the factory overhead, which are of course conveniently split into fixed part and the variable part. We know that. When you combine direct material and direct labor, which are easily identifiable with the product, they are called the prime cost. And when we add direct labor and factory overheads together, it is called as conversion cost. These are the very important terms. Remember, prime cost is the sum of direct material and direct labor, and conversion cost, the cost that is incurred to convert this direct material into finished goods, are called the conversion cost, that is sum of direct labor and the manufacturing overhead or the factory overhead. Now, when you say what is the product cost, of course, direct material, direct labor, and factory overhead. When the production process starts, some of the items will be completed, they will become part of your finished good, and some will still be worked upon, work in process. So work in process is product cost, the goods that are not completed. Once the goods are completed, the cost incurred in completing the goods All the costs so far are the cost for finished goods. And once these items are in your store, they will be considered as a part of your current assets and inventory. But when they are sold, it becomes cost of goods sold. The next problem we have is that direct material and direct labor, they are easily identifiable in the end product. They can easily be traced. The problem comes when we have to allocate the factory overheads, or called the manufacturing overhead: electricity, gas, water, indirect material, indirect labor, rent, insurance, so on and so forth. Many costs that are indirect. I would say maybe 90% of your cost might be indirect, just 10% represent your direct labor and direct material under the normal production systems. Now, how do we allocate this factory overhead? Let us discuss. Indirect cost, also called the overhead, indirect cost allocation using the cost driver. What we do, this is what we do in conventional volume-based systems. We'll go for the refinements later when we'll do ABC. Just keep things simple as we can. So for the coming period, what we do, we set a rate, what you call the manufacturing overhead rate. We take an estimate of our indirect cost. What are the indirect costs? Indirect material, indirect labor, electricity, gas, water, property taxes, insurance, and depreciation. Let's say the estimate of these costs for the coming year, let's say, is $180,000, right? So this is the budgeted overhead cost. Then we establish a suitable driver, the denominator. It could be the estimated number of units produced. It could be the labor hours, or any suitable driver that you think is suitable as to serve as a denominator. Let's say we produce product A, product B, C, D, and we have estimated certain number of A, B, C, D to be produced, and the total labor hours that might be required is 10,000. So we have taken the labor hour as our cost driver. So if you calculate the rate, it's going to be $18 per labor hour. Now this is important. This is, so we know direct material and direct labor, they can be easily traced in these four products, because direct material is direct labor, they are direct, easily identifiable. How do we allocate indirect material, electricity, gas, water, rent? We can allocate using this rate that we have established. This is the way we will apply the overhead, sometimes called the overhead application, sometimes called the overhead absorption, sometimes it's called the overhead recovery, or sometimes it's overhead allocation. All are the same, right? Now let's say item A takes 2 labor hours, item B takes 1 labor hour, item C is complex, takes 4 labor hours, and item D takes 5 labor hours. So direct material, direct labor would never be an issue. I told you they are easily traceable. How do we allocate manufacturing overhead? Since item A takes 2 hours to make, then it should carry 2 times 18, $36 worth of manufacturing overheads. Item B takes 1 hour, 1 times 18, it will take $18 worth of manufacturing overheads. Item C takes 4 hours, then it should carry $72 worth of manufacturing overhead. And item D, since it takes 5 labor hours, it should be charged 5 times 18, $90 worth of direct labor hours. This is how we can calculate the cost of our production using the estimated rate. So what we do, we establish a manufacturing overhead jumbo cost pool for $180,000. We divide it with the estimated cost driver. Could be, in our case, it was labor hour. We could use machine hour, or we could use number of units also. And this way we can transfer our indirect cost to the products the way I've said. There will be more refinements as we go along. Just you need to keep these basic ideas in your head. Next sub-unit we have is the cost behavior, fixed versus variable. All right, let us discuss first the cost behavior, variable cost. When we say variable cost, this is the cost that varies with the level of production. If it's production related, like direct material, direct labor, variable overheads, all these production costs vary with the level of production. So these are variable costs that vary with the level of production. There are also some variable costs that vary with the level of sales, like your variable selling cost, right? Variable selling sales commission, for example, it will vary with the level of sales. If you sell more, variable selling cost will go up. So variable costs are characterized by their relationship with the level of production or sales. They move in line. So if you represent it graphically, it would be something like this. If your volume is taken on x-axis, and if the variable cost is taken on the y-axis, like in this case direct material, as you produce more units, the direct material cost will go up. You produce less units, your direct material cost will go down. The important point here to learn is that, Let's say if your each unit requires $10 worth of direct material, $5 direct labor, and $3 for variable overheads, it's going to be $18. So every time you produce a unit, it will cost you 18, right? So the amount stays fixed within the relevant range. So the behavior happens that variable cost per unit, it stays the same within the relevant range. We will discuss relevant range subsequent shortly. So in the long run, this $18, which is the direct material, direct labor, variable overheads, it stays the same in the short run, but in the longer run, it could go up if the material becomes scarce or maybe the labor is more expensive. And it is possible that it might fall if you could obtain quantity discounts or if maybe you can get labor cheaply. So we can't say whether the variable cost per unit is going to go up and go down. Depends upon the various factors. The point here to remember is that in the short run, variable cost per unit stays the same, but in the long run, it can go up or down depending upon the context. Fixed cost, on the other hand, is the cost that stays fixed in total. Variable cost per unit stays the same, and fixed cost in total. Total fixed cost in the short run stays the same. Like if you have a rent of $100,000 to be paid every year, it is going to be the same for 2 or 3 years at least, unless the new rental agreement is signed. So total fixed cost, inclusive of depreciation, insurance, it tends to be the same in the short run, right? But in the long run, as I said, it could go up, could go down, and for the same valid reasons. Mixed cost, on the other hand, it is a combination of variable component and the fixed component. Like for example, the electricity charges, in which case you have to pay $500 as the fixed charge, and then every unit you consume, you have to pay 10 cents per unit consumed. Now this part is fixed, right? And this part is variable, as represented here. The fixed cost stays the same within the relevant range, and variable cost keeps on going up as you consume more electricity units. So the amount of variable and fixed combined will depend upon the level of activity. Remember, variable cost per unit stays the same, total fixed cost in total stays the same, and mixed cost per unit decreases. If you produce more units, your mixed cost per unit will fall because of the fixed component into it. Remember, variable cost per unit stays the same, fixed cost in total stays the same, but if you divide more and more units with the same fixed cost, your fixed cost per unit will fall. For example, in this case, we have $100,000 as our fixed cost, which will stay fixed for the short run. If you produce 1,000 units, your fixed cost per unit is going to be $100. And if you produce 10,000 units, look at this, what will happen. Your fixed cost per unit falls drastically from 100 to 10. So fixed cost in total stays the same, but on per unit basis, it falls. If you produce more, the cost per unit will fall. But if you produce less, your fixed cost per unit will be higher. On the other hand, variable cost per unit basis stay the same, but when you increase your level of output, your total variable cost will go up, as shown by this schedule here, by this graph. And as I said, that mixed cost is the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. So its behavior is that it increases with the level of output, but as you increase your level of output, your mixed cost per unit will fall because of the presence of fixed cost in the mixed cost, right? And in the long run, it can again have an erratic movement up or down depending upon the specific circumstances we are in. Cost behavior and relevant range. Remember, as we just discussed a little while ago, within the relevant range, your fixed cost in total fixed cost stays the same, and your variable cost per unit stays the same. This is very important. Relevant range means the range established by your production capacity. It might be established by the contracts with your workers, or it may be because of the contract with your vendors who provide you the material, whatever constraint that limits your activity. So within that relevant range set by your productive capacity, union contracts, or maybe because of the availability of material with the vendor under the contract, within that arrangement, your total fixed cost stays the same and variable cost per unit stays the same. Beyond this this range, the variable cost per unit may go up or go down, as we discussed earlier. In the long run, all the costs could show erratic behavior, right? So when you say Erratic behavior, it means the assumption that the variable cost per unit would stay the same and fixed cost in total would stay the same, it may change. So within the relevant range, you could expect the cost to show predictable behavior. Variable cost per unit stays the same and total fixed cost stays the same. But if the relevant range is breached, then the cost could show an erratic behavior. Variable cost per unit may go up or down, total fixed cost may go up and down. It could be anything. Now let us discuss these few costs and see their behavior. Sales, truly variable. If you sell more, your sales revenue goes up. Returns will also show a variable behavior. Direct material directly depends upon production, variable. Direct labor, variable. Indirect labor, variable. Fringe benefits could be variable, or it could be partly variable and partly fixed, so it could be semi-variable. Royalties can be entirely variable, could be semi-variable depending upon the agreement with the originator. Maintenance and repairs could be, normally it is semi-variable. Some part is fixed, then it varies with the level of activity. Factory production supplies is variable. Depreciation, straight line is of course fixed cost. Electricity used in manufacturing process, if it's entirely based upon the units consumed, it's variable. If there is a standing charge, then it's semi-variable. Scrap spoilage, it again depends upon the level of production, so it is variable. And then sales commission depends upon sales. Sell more, pay more, variable. Officer salaries are fixed. Fringe benefits related to labor could be variable, could be fixed depending upon the arrangements. Delivery expenses, of course, variable, vary with the level of activity. And advertising expense, as it's not related to directly sales. Of course, sales go up with the advertising expense, but we can't establish a correlation or a very accurate mathematical model. So we assume it to be fixed cost depending upon the management discretion, what the amount they would like to spend on advertising. So this is how we can differentiate between the behavior of different cost components in your income statement.